It's finally time to end this stupid backlog and take a look at the set breakdown for V-BT02 Strongest Team AL4. So, I'm going to try to go through this in the same manner as always. Honestly, I've been debating on whether I should even continue this series, but I know that there's still people that really like set breakdowns and look forward to them, so I feel like I'm still going to continue them as long as there's people that want to see them, but I know that, they're decreasing in popularity because I've been, like in the past, I kind of focused on doing content around the English releases, so then the set breakdowns would be more viewed and there'd be higher interest just because that's when you would really see my thoughts on every card, whereas now it's like you've already seen my thoughts through the deck previews and other discussion type videos that I've done. So I know some people don't look forward to it as much, and other YouTubers take a look at the set a bit earlier. So but I apologize for how late this is. I'm going to try to make sure that I'm not this late again, but, I've already explained my circumstances quite a few times in past videos and on Twitter, so I think most of you already know. But anyway, we're going to go and look at things in the order from my least favorite clan to the most favorite clan, but I pretty much like all of the clans in this set, so there's not a super big, crazy order except for maybe the number 1 spot. But anyway, open up a can of whatever you feel like, sit back, enjoy a drink, and let's get on to it. And that was actually a can opening sound, it wasn't just a sound effect. I'm having myself a nice little grape Fanta. So, my least favorite clan in this set just so happens to be Dark Irregulars, but not by a big margin or anything. So, in terms of markers, you get a Tetsu marker in terms of sign markers, and then there's the No Life King marker in terms of box toppers. And then on the topic of No Life King, let's go over the main VR. So, No Life King Death Anchor. He has 2 skills, Vanguard Circle when placed, Soul Charge 1, and he gets plus 2k power until end of turn for each card in your soul. So, he gets a massive power up when you ride him. Even if you ride him first, he's gonna get at least, like, I don't know, an 8k, 10k buff, because you're usually gonna have at least 5 soul by the time you ride him. And then his second skill is at the end of the battle that he attacked. If you have 13 or more cards in your soul, counterblast 1 and put a card from your hand and 3 rearguards into your soul. Write a card from your soul as stand, and that unit gets plus 1 crit until end of turn. So this is part of the notorious No Life King assassin loop in premium, which I think you've already heard about plenty of times. I've had to play against it plenty of times, and it is pretty damn scary, so just be aware of that. But in standard, the deck is also really good, because in quite a few games you can consistently get to 13 soul. I've already shown that off, I guess, in the deck preview, but the deck is overall just very strong. You can rewrite him with his second skill and then trigger the first skill to get another soul and then, even more power than you had earlier. So it's pretty nice for that, and it's just a good VR overall. But the problem with Dark Irregulars in this set, I feel, is that No Life King is amazing, but every other card feels a little bit lackluster, or it's made to just function around No Life King. So that's a little bit of a shame because it's not as easily splashable into other things. Next up we have the Origin Rare and Triple Rare Gwyn the Ripper. Vanguard and Rearguard Circle when placed, Soul Charge 1, and if you have 10 or more cards in your soul, counterblast 1 and choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it. So this card is being played at like 1 or 2 copies. The Soul Charge skill is definitely nice, so even if you don't have 10 soul, you can Soul Charge it. The counterblast is fine, I think, because you don't counterblast that much in most games, in my opinion. I mean, depends on your build, obviously, but you also have countercharge in this deck, which a lot of decks don't. So I think it's fine just for that. So you can use the retire skill when you feel like you're facing against something like, I don't know, an Axel clan that doesn't generate much advantage, like Aqua Force or Nova Grappler, where you can really like take advantage of that retire. So I think it's pretty good for that, and still worth to be played. So I think, he's not an amazing card, but still pretty good. Next up is the other triple rare Vrukalakas. So when he's retired from your Guardian Circle, you can Soul Charge 1, so that's pretty nice. You can guard with him, get a Soul Charge, and then put him into your soul with some other ability to trigger his second skill, which is when he's put into the soul due to an ability of your card during your turn, sadly. One of your Vanguards gets plus 10k power until end of turn. So sadly restricted to just your turn. If this was on both turns, it'd be an even more amazing card, but even now it's pretty good because you can pair it up with one of our grade 2s that we'll see later to get yourself a counter charge as well. Then we have Demon Eater, which is our other grade 3 with Protect. Her first skill is Vanguard Circle. When your Guardian is retired, you can put it into your soul instead. So this is your optimal grade, or not grade 1, right? Your first grade 3 ride of the game, because then you can really pump up your soul quite easily, so that when you go for No Life King, you can usually do it on like turn 4 or something, because of how much you can soul charge with her skill. And then she has a Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill. When she attacks, you can counterblast 1 and put one other Rearguard into your soul. Then you draw a card, and until the end of that battle, she gets plus 10k, and you can potentially Soul Blast 10 if you want to, and your opponent cannot call Sentinels from their hand for that attack. So that's a pretty amazing skill, because you're already converting a Counterblast and one other rearguard, which converts into a card in your soul, to a card in your hand, and she gets 10k power as well, and then only if you're aiming for the win, you can Soul Blast 10 to just block off the Sentinels. So I think she's a pretty good card. You know, whether you call her or ride her, she's gonna do quite a lot, so I think she's definitely quite good and worth to run at a 3 or 4 of count in my opinion. And the card that pairs up with her really well, and basically every other card in the clan, is Doreen the Thruster, so she got her remake as well. Vanguard Rearguard Circle skill: when your card is put into your soul due to the ability of your card, this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn. So the previous Doreen only worked in the main phase, which was a bit of a restriction, but this one is just when you soul charge during any point in time, which is really nice. You can put her in the front row and then use the Demon Eater to soul charge a few from your Guardian Circle and pump her up, you know, so your opponent can't land attacks on her, you know, if you decide to do like an early rush or something. But just in general, she's just a great card. She's good for boosting your Demon Eaters, the No-Life Kings, like everything basically. So she's a great one, and she got a massive improvement over her old form, because her old skill also was only on Rearguard Circle. Then we have the Draw Perfect Guard, so nothing special there. And then we have the last gift grade 3, which is Ghoulish the Spoiler. Vanguard Circle: when you ride him, Counterblast 1 and Soul Charge 2, and return up to 1 grade 2 or less card from your soul to your hand. What's nice is that even if you know, you can select things that you soul charge from those 2 that you get from his skill, so I think he's a pretty nice card for that little toolbox he nets, because he's really nice just to, let's say, you need your, I don't know, your Gwyn, you fetch your Gwyn. You need one of your other grade 2s that we're going to take a look at, you fetch one of them. And then he's topped off with his second skill on Vanguard Circle: when he attacks a Vanguard, if you have 10 or more cards in your soul, you retire one of your opponent's rearguards and he gets plus 10k until the end of that battle as well. Unfortunately, I didn't find myself having that much soul when I ride him. Like, I wouldn't have the 10 soul for his skill on turn 3, which is a bit of a shame, because that's when the skill really has a lot of pressure, because retiring your opponent's unit that early, playing, you know, a clan that isn't Kagero, is definitely quite a lot of pressure. But, you know, you need to high roll quite a bit in order to be able to get that 10 soul that early, otherwise it's going to take a little bit longer. But he's still a good card. I think he's worth running at like 2 or 3, just for that retire skill. And you can also ride him with the No-Life King if you desire to do so. Then we have this Garo looking guy in Werewolf Ziegler. So Vanguard Rearguard Circle: during your turn, if you have 5 or more cards in your soul, he gets plus 5k power. So it's only during your turn, but 14k attacker is always nice, because that's a really easy condition to fulfill. Then his second skill is Vanguard Circle only: when he attacks a Vanguard, you soul charge 2. So he's your prime grade 2 ride target, nothing more than that. He does what the deck needs to do, but I feel like after the second wave of DI support, he's probably going to get taken out of the deck, just because his skills aren't all that flashy. And then we have our countercharger in Blood Sacrifice Ruthven. When you call him, put up to 1 card from your damage zone or drop zone into your soul, and if you put from your damage zone, put the top card of your deck face down into your damage zone. So, you know, you don't actually get the heal, and you basically pay a counterblast for it. But if you put Vrukalakas into your soul from either drop zone or damage zone, you can countercharge 1. So if you guard with Vrukalakas early, and then you put him into your soul with his skill, you actually get a countercharge. So that's definitely super nice, and I really like that interaction. It's worth running both cards just for that interaction. Then we have Prisoner Beast, another card I think is going to get cut once Dark Regulars gets another wave of support. First skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle: when placed, you can soul charge 1. And then second skill is Rearguard Circle only continuous. If you have 5 or more cards in your soul, he gets plus 2k permanently. So that also stays during your opponent's turn. So that's quite nice. My friend Amber Sama says this looks like Harambe from Hell, and I do agree with that, but overall it's a bit of a shame that the card isn't all that good. Then we have the grade 1 Perfect Guard for Dark Regulars, so nothing too special there. Then we have arguably one of the worst looking cards in Standard so far, which is Terrifying Fist. He definitely is terrifying, and his fist doesn't look that attractive either. Vanguard Rearguard Circle: he also lacks the gift. When he attacks a Vanguard, soul charge 1 and he gets plus 5k until the end of that battle. If the soul charged card is a trigger unit, he gets plus 10k instead. So he's technically not all that bad. I think if he had a gift, people might even play him. But I think just for the power up, it's not that amazing, because you can just put one of your Doreens behind anything, and then you get more out of her than you would out of running him and messing up your lineup, because you already have 3 really good grade 3s that you want to be running. So unfortunately, this guy won't see much play. Then one of my favorite grade 2s for this amazing Gar pose is Obstacle Offender. When he intercepts, if you have 5 or more cards in your soul, he gets plus 10k shield until the end of that battle. Big shame that it's only during the battle he intercepts. I wish more units were like Miracle Dandy, where he gets plus 10k shield just by having a condition, whether you guard with him from hand or from field. So it's a bit of a shame that it isn't the same. I think they also made that one for, I think, Great Nature as well. So it's a pretty big shame that they kept doing that, because that really made the cards that increase their shield much better when they work from your hand. But this one doesn't really do that much outside of his really cool art. Then we have Succubus of Seductive Smile. So her continuous rearguard circle skill is, if Succubus of Seductive Smile is in your soul, she gets boost and she can intercept from the back row. That's not bad, you know, 9k booster in the back row is pretty good, but I think you don't really want to mess up your grade 2 ratios too much, because most of your grade 2 soul charge, or basically all of them soul charge in one way or another, and she doesn't, so I think you're losing some of your early game soul charge tempo if you do give up one of those slots. But looking at one of the slots that you don't give up is Werebear Verfolger, who has a rearguard only skill, and he's also 8k power. When he attacks a Vanguard, you may counterblast 1, then you soul charge 1, and this unit gets plus 2k until the end of that battle for each card in your soul. So on a turn that you do Death Anchor, this is going to do quite a lot of damage, because it's probably going to power up by a significant amount. It also includes the soul charge that from the skill that you use him for. So if you had 3 soul and then you soul charge him with his skill, then you gain plus 8, because then you have 4 when it actually checks for the amount. So it's definitely quite nice for that. And our final card for Dark Regulars is Werwolf Freiwilliger. So, he has an act, you put him into your soul to soul charge 1, and one of your units gets plus 5k until the end of turn. He's quite good because he's essentially a soul charge 2. And he works, you know, from the very get-go. You don't have to wait until a certain condition is met. You just drop him down the field and put him into the soul, and there you go. So I think overall Dark Regulars got some nice support, but I think you know what I mean by how a lot of these cards just focus on No Life King's win con, and they don't really do much else outside of that. Like some of the cards like Vrukalakas and the Ruthven, they work outside of this deck. Obviously, you can put them into any Dark Regulars deck. Same, I guess, with Ghoulish the Spoiler, but then again, I think in Standard, they all just kind of revolve around No Life King, and that's a little bit of a shame, but the deck is still really good at the moment. We'll see where the new support takes it in, I believe, March. So yeah, that's going to be it for the Dark Irregulars segment. Moving on to the Destroyer of OTT and the dominator of this format, we have Murakumo. They also got 2 markers. One is a signed one, which is the Yahagi Kyo one, and then you have the Zanbaku one that you get as a box topper. And then getting into Zanbaku, we're going to go over his very scary skill. Vanguard Circle, act once per turn. You may Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, then you search your deck for up to 1 card with a Rester in its card name, call it to Rearguard Circle, shuffle your deck, and this unit gets plus 5k until the end of turn. If right arrestor and left arrestor are on your rearguard circles, your opponent cannot ride a grade 3 or greater from a grade 3 on his or her next ride phase. So if both arrestors are on the field, then he forces your opponent to not be able to ride on top of their grade 3. So you don't want to do this when your opponent's on grade 2, because it won't really get you anywhere. So I think we're going to break our usual order of looking at cards in terms of rarity and look at the 2 arrestors right off the bat in order for this to make sense in context. So first, the simple one, which is left arrestor. When he attacks a Vanguard, if you have another rearguard with a arrestor in his card name, you Soul Blast 1, and he gets plus 5k until the end of that battle. So he doesn't have to have necessarily right arrestor on the board, you can have 2 left arrestors to fulfill the skill, but it also costs a Soul Blast, which does actually come up quite a bit in the deck, so you don't want to use it too freely. And then right arrestor is the one that really matters. When called, if your Vanguard is Dueling Dragon Zanbaku, and you have another rearguard with a arrestor in its card name, Counterblast 2 and put a card from your hand into your soul. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and that unit cannot stand on your opponent's next stand phase. So this is the complete Zanbaku stun lock. So you force your opponent to not be able to ride, and they also can't stand. And so that means that they're stuck on arrested grade 3 for a whole turn, meaning they can't do their drive checks, they lose on 2 cards in their hand, and their main objective for that game becomes to survive. So this is a really powerful combo. It's the reason why OTT is kind of getting knocked down from the meta, and why we're seeing this clan top so much, but also has a lot of amazing support to go with it, so we're going to go over the rest of it right now. So first up is Swift Archer Fushimi. So his first skill is Vanguard Rearguard Circle Continuous. If you have 4 or more rearguards during your turn, he gets plus 5k, so it's a pretty easy condition to fulfill, so just a 14k attacker. But then when Vanguard and Rearguard Circle, when he's placed, choose one of your units, and until end of turn, the unit can attack the back row. You know, you don't have any retires in Murakumo, but this is the closest you're gonna get where you can actually attack your opponent's rearguards in the back row and disrupt their tempo because they thought their boosters were safe. So, you know, a lot of people do overcommit sometimes in the back row. You can take out Nemains if you're playing Shadows, you can take out Ermos if you're playing against Kagero, which is a really big deal actually. You can take out Circle Maguses, you can take out Die Braves, like so many amazing grade 1s they can just attack into, but obviously if you are calling him, your opponent can guard against these attacks, so it's not a complete retire, but still a pretty good thing to at least use up some cards from your hand if they do wanna protect against this attack. Then we have Mandala Lord. So his first skill is when you ride him, you may Counter Blast 1 and Soul Blast 1, choose 2 of your units, search your deck for up to 1 card with the same card name as each of those units, call them to Rearguard Circle and shuffle your deck. So it does say for up to 1, so if you only have him on the board, you can just copy Mandala Lord and that's going to be it. But if you called like a grade 1 or something behind him the turn before that, you can copy him and that grade 1. And so that's a really nice thing because they don't go back to deck or anything. That's what makes this card so good, is that you Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1 to +2, and it stays on the board. It's not like old Murakumo where it would go back to deck or go back to hand, or if it goes back to hand it's actually okay, but they don't even go back to deck or anything. They stay on the board, and that makes this card really, really good just for that skill. And that's why the Mandala Lord deck has actually been topping on its own without Zambaku, which is also really cool. So I think for an Axel clan, this is just an amazing thing to have. And then his second skill is an act once per turn Vanguard Circle. You can put any card from your hand into your soul, and all of your units with the same card name as this unit get +3k until end of turn. So you may think it's just Mandala Lord, but actually we have quite a few cards supporting him that we're going to take a look at over this segment. And then we have the fearsome attacker Twin Swordsman Musashi. His Vanguard and Rearguard Circle skill is, when he attacks, if you have more rearguards than your opponent, then he gets +5k until the end of that battle, and when your opponent would call Guardians from their hand, they must call 2 or more simultaneously. So this card is more annoying than you think. If your opponent drops this on an Axel Circle, or even drops it not on an Axel Circle, even if they're attacking with like a 17k attack, if you want to guard against it, it's going to get pretty annoying because you have to drop 2 cards in your hand. This has no cost. Like, remember when Battledore Fighter first got printed and we thought it was OP? And it was like, oh, Counter Blast 1, Soul Blast 1, that's like, you know, that felt like, you know, a suitable cost for this kind of thing. Now they just give it to Murakumo for free, and it works on rear guards, so it definitely is really scary. So I think, you know, the skill of these kind of cards is getting more and more easy to use, but I think Musashi really tops it at how good it can get. Then we have the perfect draw for Murakumo in Leaves Mirage, and then we have some other support for cloning mechanics. So we have Stealth Beast, Bloody Mist. So Vanguard and Rearguard Circle act. If you don't have another Bloody Mist on your Rearguard Circle, you can Counter Blast 1 and search your deck for up to 1 Bloody Mist, and then go to Rearguard Circle and shuffle your deck, and that unit loses 4k power until end of turn. So it'll only be a 5k attacker, but you can still boost it and give it triggers and all that stuff. And it doesn't go back to deck, which means that it's actually going to stay on the board for next turn, and you basically got yourself an intercept. So this card isn't really played in Zambaku because you have to use up 7 to 8 of your grade 2 slots for the arresters, but Mandala Lord likes to play this card because it's just a +1 for Counter Blast 1, and that makes it quite good. And this also is followed up by Stealth Beast Million Rat, who has the exact same skill. If you don't have another Million Rat on your Rearguard Circle, Counter Blast 1, search your deck for a Million Rat and call it to Rearguard Circle, but it loses 4k power. So this time, this one is only on Rearguard Circle, so Bloody Mist was Vanguard Circle 2, but this one you do have to call to use a skill, but it's still, even if you call one in the same row, it's a 12k attack combined, so that's pretty nice in my opinion. So these two cards are really good because Murakumo suddenly pluses so much, especially as an Axel deck, and you can also drop these on Axel markers, and you know, they'll be like 14k or 15k attackers, but that's still okay for taking out grade 2s and whatnot. Then the Perfect Guard, the grade 1 Perfect Guard is a Kappa for Murakumo, so that's kind of worth mentioning, I guess. And then one of the kind of really cool but not played so much grade 3s from Murakumo is Hyakume Shadow. So when you drive check him, you can call him. So essentially you can call him to an Axel Circle when you drive check him, so I think some players are playing him at like 1 or 2 just because it's a pretty cool idea, I think, and his art is really cool. It's a shame he lacks the Axel markers, so miswriting into him does hurt, so that's why people only play like 1 or 2, but I think he is actually quite interesting because he can just get you a free attack out of nowhere, kind of the way that ninjas should be working. And now we'll take a look at the couple of Mandala support cards, first one of which is Stealth Dragon Magai Mandala, Rearguard Circle and Deck Continuous. This card's name is changed to Covert Demonic Dragon Mandala Lord. So he is one of the Mandala cards, and if you remember Mandala Lord's second skill, he gives +3k to every card with the same card name as Mandala Lord, so that way this grade 2 will also get that +3k boost. And on top of that, his other skill is Rearguard Circle. This unit gets boost if you have a total of 3 or more Mandala Lords on on your Vanguard and Rearguard circle. So he's a 12k booster in that sense, so that's definitely very nice. And then we have another card that helps that out, which is Stealth Dragon Turbulent Edge. Act Rearguard circle, Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, and then until end of turn, change the card name of all your Turbulent Edges on your Rearguard circle, Mandala Lord, and all your Mandala Lords on your Vanguard and Rearguard circles get plus 3k. So that way you're getting plus 6k on every actual Mandala Lord, every Turbulent Edge, and every Magai Mandala. So that's definitely really cool. So Magai Mandala turns to a 15k booster, Turbulent Edge is a 14k booster, and overall you're just like, you have so many cards on the board and you also have so much power going around. The only problem with Turbulent Edge is that his cost is pretty steep. Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 for something that doesn't actually plus you anything is a little bit steep. So I think you'll only use that skill once or twice per game. Then we have Gallatin's brother, Stealth Rogue of Silence Shijimamaru. So his skill is pretty simple to understand. When it boosts two of your units with the same card name as the boosted unit, get plus 3k until end of turn. So essentially, if you boost something like a Mandala Lord, then another Mandala Lord will also get the 3k, and then if you have two of them on the board, then the boosts will obviously stack with every time you boost, so it's a good card. It just adds up a bunch of power, and I like it a lot for that reason, so it's just a good card. I think, you know, obviously a strict upgrade to its previous form, which was just an 8k vanilla, so definitely quite nice. And then finally we have Stealth Dragon Amatsu Snipe. So this card has a continuous Vanguard and Rearguard circle. If a Rearguard was placed from your deck this turn, he gets plus 5k power, so this does not stack, keep that in mind, because it's a continuous skill. So just once, if during this game you placed a Rearguard from your deck, then he'll have a plus 5k. Whether you attack with him or boost with him doesn't matter, just a 12k and that's it. So good card. Most decks play him, well, most Zanbaku decks play him because he's just an easy condition to fulfill with Zanbaku's skill, so I like him quite a lot for that, and I think a lot of other Murakumo players do as well. So that's going to be it for the Murakumo part. Obviously they're just slaying the meta right now because of the really just devastating skill of Zanbaku and the combination of the left and right arresters, so it's just a great deck overall, and I think a lot of Murakumo players have been waiting a long time for their time to shine. And now getting on to everyone's fan favorite clan, Shadow Paladin. I know a good handful of people who just waited for this clan to come out in Standard before even touching Standard, so it's a good thing that it's already here. We're gonna go over the trial deck first as well, since I haven't broken that down on its own, because it was just, you know, its own trial deck. It wasn't like they released in the pair or anything, so we're just gonna go over the trial deck contents first. So you can get this nice looking Blaster Dark marker. It also comes in a signed version if you're lucky enough. But let's go over the main grade 2 cover card, which is Blaster Dark. Vanguard and Rearguard circle, when placed, you can counterblast 1 and your opponent chooses one of their rearguards and retires it. This is already a pretty nice skill because if your opponent overcommits early, then you can easily punish them, and it also works with both his second skill and your general win con. Act Vanguard circle once per turn. If your opponent has no rearguards, you may discard a card from your hand, and this unit gets drive +1 until end of turn. So you get a twin drive on turn 2, which is pretty good. You can discard one of your basic draw triggers or just like any card in your hand you don't need to get that extra drive check, which is pretty big deal actually in building up momentum in early game. So I think this card is pretty damn good. His other art is also really good looking, and just overall it's a good card, and it works quite well with what the deck wants to be doing. Now let's take a look at the main grade 3, which is the Dark Dictator. Vanguard circle continuous. During your turn, he gets plus 2k for each of your rearguards. Kind of like the old Alfred, essentially, that he just gains power for every rearguard you have. But obviously, if you start nuking your own board, that power is going to go down. But second skill is act once per turn, counterblast 1, call up to 1 grade 2 or less card from your hand to rearguard circle, and that unit gets plus 5k until end of turn, and then your opponent must choose one of their rearguards and retire it. So most of the retiring, or actually all of the retiring in Shadow Paladin at the moment in Standard, is that your opponent chooses their own units. So it's not that you're choosing, but it's still pretty big because your main objective is to make them retire everything regardless, so it all works towards that goal. Then we have Pulverized Knight Daemon. Rearguard circle when he attacks a Vanguard. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, he gets plus 5k until end of that battle. He does have the force marker, so if you do miss right into him, at least you're still kind of okay, but this is more for the budget players who prefer to just play with a trial deck and get to know the game itself. Then we have Witch of Calamity Emmer. Rearguard circle once per turn. When your other rearguard is placed, you may have her gain plus 5k until end of turn. So the rearguard doesn't have to be placed from hand or from deck or from anywhere, just placed from any place possible, and she'll get that plus 5k, so a 15k attacker, which is alright for a trial deck. Then we have Fold Bow. Rearguard circle, when the attack is boosted hits a Vanguard, you can counterblast 1 and 2 of your other units get plus 5k until end of turn. So it's a bit of on-hit pressure, but counterblast 1 for that doesn't really feel too much worth it in terms of what we have in the set, so it's more, again, just for sticking in the trial deck. But a grade 1 that you do want to put in the main deck is Blaster Javelin. When you call it, you can counterblast 1 if you have 2 or more grade 1 or less rearguards to draw a card, and he gets plus 3k until end of turn. But he does count towards that count of grade 1, so if you have another grade 1 or less and then call him, you can actually activate the skill to counterblast 1 and then draw yourself an extra card. So very good card that you definitely want to be playing. And the last one from the trial deck is Witch of Nostrum Arianrod. Soul Blast 1 as an act and rest her, and then one of your units gets plus 10k until end of turn. Some people play her as a 2-of in the main, completed deck, but I think she's a little bit lackluster in terms of the other grade 1s that we have in the set. But overall, the trial deck is really strong on its own. If you're just getting into the game and want to start, it's actually perfect to get into the game with, because it has a lot of strong cards and has a pretty cool win con as well. And it's a bit expensive obviously to upgrade the deck because the deck is very popular, but if you just want to try out the game, it is a perfect trial deck to start off with. And then we have less cards in the actual set because, it's just when clans get trial decks in the V series, they tend to get less cards in the booster set. But first and foremost, we have the 2 force markers, one for Phantom Blaster Dragon and one for the signed Ren one. And then Phantom Blaster Dragon does have the special numbered version in this set where there's only, well, in Japan there's 999 copies of it, but in English right now there's only 299, I believe, or 300. So essentially you don't actually, we don't have all 1000 in English yet. They might be released in subsequent printings, but if you feel like spending $700 on a piece of cardboard, then do feel free to pick up one of these if you feel like it. But let's go over the actual skills. So here's the SVR and the VR. So his first skill is an act, Vanguard Circle, counterblast 1 and retire 3 of your rearguards. Your opponent chooses 3 of their rearguards, not units, and retires them, and then this unit gets plus 15k power and plus 1 crit until end of turn. So this is a misprint. It does have to say rearguards because your opponent can't retire their Vanguard for this skill. It has to be their rearguard. But in the end, it's a good skill because you convert 3 of your own units for 3 of your opponents, and usually you've already gained your units through other ways which didn't really use up cards from your hand. So it is a good skill, but obviously you need to be careful because if you use it too much, then you're going to start to set yourself back further than your opponent is actually being set back by the use of this skill, because usually they'll stay at like 2 or even 1 cards on the board at the end of turn to make sure that the Phantom Blaster Dragon skill doesn't actually pulverize them too much. But the second skill that PBD has is Active Vanguard Circle once per turn. If your opponent has 4 or less cards in their damage and no rear guards, you can Soul Blast a grade 3 to deal 1 damage to your opponent's Vanguard. So you have to clear their board by using the first skill and Blaster Dark and stuff like that, and then once the board is cleared, you can Soul Blast a grade 3, so it has to be a grade 3, to deal 1 damage. So you are going to have to keep on riding if you want to keep using the skill, but damage triggers will also activate in case they do check a trigger on the damage, so do keep that in mind as well. But overall, it's a great win con for Shadow Paladin. I think, obviously it kind of folds to OTT, but in the end it's still a really good grade 3 against everything else, and there's still 23 other clans outside of OTT in this game, but I guess Great Nature also kind of counters this. Anyway, up next is our Origin Rare and grade 2 triple rare Darkness Maiden Maka. Vanguard and Rearguard Circle act once per turn. You may counterblast 1 and call a grade 1 or less card from your hand to Rearguard Circle, and then draw a card, and this unit gets plus 5k until end of turn. Really simple but amazing skill where you just pay a counterblast to call a grade 1 or less, and then you get a card from your deck to draw on top of that, and usually you have grade 1s that synergize with that, like the Blaster Javelin we saw earlier, and the Black Sage Karen that we're taking a look at now, who, when he plays with the ability of your card, you can Soul Blast 1 to countercharge 1, and he gets plus 3k. So you essentially refund the counterblast from Karen's skill for 1 Soul Blast, so essentially you just Soul Blast 1 to call a grade 1 and draw a card and gain a total of 8k power in between those 2 cards. So Karen's really important because you pay a lot of counterblast in this deck, so you do need to use him at least, well, try to use him once per turn to be able to balance out all that counterblasting. And the last triple rare of the whopping 3 triple rares that Shadow Paladin got is Skull Witch Nemain. Act Rearguard Circle. As a cost, you may rest her, and then you search your deck for up to 1 5000 power card, call it an open Rearguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. This ability may only be used by a card with the same card name once a turn, so it's a hard once per turn. So if you use her skill to call another Nemain, because she has 5k power, you can't use that other Nemain in the same turn, because her named skill can only be used once per turn. So keep that in mind, but for now, Nemain is the only good target that you want to target with her. You can also call your triggers, and there's also a grade 1 promo coming up in November in English, which also has 5k power as a grade 1, so that's something to look forward to for the Shadow Paladin mains, but she's a great card in generating advantage and just setting up a good board for Phantom Blaster Dragon in later turns. Next up, we have some Blaster cards. First is Blaster Rapier. Rearguard Circle, when she attacks a Vanguard, if you have 3 or more units with Blaster in their card names, she gets plus 5k until the end of that battle. So 14k attacker with a pretty steep setup condition because Dark Dictator doesn't trigger this, any other grade 3 other than Phantom Blaster Dragon doesn't trigger this, and then you have to have just a board of blasters, which, you know, kind of hinders your deck building quite a bit and forces you to run like 4 of her and 4 of a bunch of other blasters outside of Blaster Dark and Blaster Javelin, so it's a bit questionable if it's good or not. Her second skill is when her attack hits a Vanguard, you can count almost 1, and your opponent must choose one of the rearguards and retire it. Again, this has units, which is a bit oof. So it's this little misprint that they keep on doing from Phantom Blaster Dragon, but yeah, she's alright, but I don't think she should be used for now. Maybe if we get even more Blaster units in the future that are really good and playable, then she might get better, so it might be worth to pick up a cheap playset for now in case she gets better over time. Then we have Blaster Dagger, a grade 1 that I think is actually not all that bad. When its attack or the attacker boosted hits a Vanguard, you can put him into your soul, and your opponent must choose one of their rearguards and retire it. For free, you don't have to actually counterblast or soul blast anything, you just put him into your soul, which is good because we have quite a few cards that soul blast, so I think he's actually not that bad. You can play him as like a 2-of or a 3-of, so I think he's quite good because he can get pretty annoying for the opponent. So, pretty good card overall, and just, you know, all things considered, I think is quite good. Then we have the Draw Perfect Guard for Shadows and Mac Lear. And then we have the really good grade 3 that is Dark Mage Badbar Khar. So, his skill is act Vanguard Rearguard Circle once per turn. You may Soul Blast 1, look at the top card of your deck and call it to Rearguard Circle or put it into your drop zone. If you call, that unit gets plus 5k until the end of turn, and at the end of that turn, retire that unit. So in Standard, you pretty much always want to call it, unless like your board is full and already perfect, in which case I'm not sure why you'd be using that skill unless you really want to high roll into something amazing, but this card is definitely very good. You usually want to be calling it. The only instance where I would put it to the drop zone is in Premium. If you're playing Luard, you might want to put that grade 1 in the drop zone immediately, but overall, it's good because you also get the plus 5k buff on it even if you call a trigger. So, really good card. I don't even mind writing this first in terms of grade 3s. Before writing the Phantom Blaster Dragon the next turn, because usually Phantom Blaster Dragon isn't doing that much on its first turn, unless you really want to nuke your opponent's board, if let's say they were going first as an Axel deck or something like that. So, pretty good card. However, a somewhat disappointing misprinted grade 2 in Cursed Lancer. This card must be called to an occupied rearguard circle when you would call it from your hand, so that is a misprint. If it was open, that just means every card in the existence of this game, because we usually call our cards on open rearguard circles, but this has to be called an occupied one, so you have to retire something in order to call it, so it's a bit of a shame. But second skill is Rearguard Circle. When placed, you can Soul Blast 1, and this unit gets plus 10k until the end of turn, and if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, you countercharge 1. See, that part of the skill is kind of nice, but if they just made it so that he countercharges if you just haven't countercharged this turn, it would be so much better and actually would be played, because right now it's not worth to -1 yourself just to get a plus 10k buff and a countercharge in a very rare scenario, so I don't think it's really worth to use in that instance. So for now, Cursed Lancer isn't all that great. And now let's go over the commons. First we have Fiery Knight Loeg. So he doesn't have a gift, but he does have a rearguard circle skill. When he attacks a Vanguard, he gets plus 3k until the end of that battle. For each rearguard, you have more than your opponent. And the example is 9k if you have 5 and your opponent has 2. So, pretty simple skill. He's not the only one that has this skill. Also, Tragic Knight Cathbad has the same one, the exact same skill actually, but Cathbad he actually used because he's a grade 2 with 10k power, so you don't lose out on your grade 3 ratios by running a giftless grade 3. So, Cathbad is definitely better to run, and he looks like Lancer a little bit from Fate. Then we have Reclusive Knight Angus. Rearguard circle during your turn. If you don't have any other rearguards, he gets plus 10k power. So if you use PBD and your hand sucks and you can't call anything else, I guess at least you've got him. But honestly, he's pretty bad, so I don't think he's worth running whatsoever. Then we have Mage of Destruction Fedlech. Rearguard circle continuous. If you have 5 rearguards, this unit cannot be attacked. So 9k power, but kind of interesting skill, but your opponent can still attack your other rearguards. But if you have 2 of him on the board and then 3 units in the back row and your opponent has no way to retire him, then I guess your opponent is forced to just attack your Vanguard, which, you know, is interesting in itself, but you do lose lose out on 1k power in exchange, and you can't call your other important grade 2s like your Makas or your Blaster Darks, so overall it doesn't seem like that great of a card. Maybe it would be better if it was an Axel clan. Next is Invest Falcon. Rearguard Circle, when it boosts, if you have another grade 1 or less rearguard, you can have it gain plus 5k until the end of that battle, but then you have to retire it at the end of the battle. So not even at the end of turn, it just poofs out at the end of the battle. I don't know if this even has any cool synergies in Premium. I guess maybe with like the Maka that calls, I think when she's being boosted, she can call from deck, then maybe, I don't know, but this is still at the end of the battle, so it doesn't really have such amazing synergy. I don't really know. You know, possibly it's nice because it's a non-GB1 booster that you can put into your drop zone for Luard early, but in Standard this really doesn't do all that much. Then we have Abyss Router. When called, Soul Blast 1 and call a grade 0 from your hand to rearguard circle to draw a card. Kind of okay skill actually. I've seen a lot of players use her just because it's an extra way to draw, and if you have just like a 5k defense draw trigger sitting in your hand, you might as well just get rid of it for a Soul Blast 1 and get yourself an extra card in hand instead, so she's actually not too bad. And then finally we have Nightmare Painter, who helps you put up with all the soul costs in this deck. You know, we do have quite a few, from Karen to Cathbad to to Badbar Car rather, not Cathbad, and then Phantom Blaster Dragon and all that stuff. So, Nightmare Painter, when called, you may put a grade 1 or less card from your drop zone into your soul to give him plus 3k power until end of turn. So a 10k booster or 10k attacker, and you fill up your soul a little bit, so it's definitely a pretty nice card in my opinion. And finally, the last card is the IMR of this set, which is Blaster Dark with Ito Akira's signature on it, and sadly he has 2 left hands. But it's a pretty cool art regardless. I actually pulled one from one of my boxes and it looks really cool in person, so I don't mean to look down on the card, it's actually quite cool. So that's it for the fan favorite clan of the entire game, Shadow Paladin. I think it got some amazing support. It's going to get even more support in March in English, so I think we're going to get to see, you know, where all of this goes. We have some staples that are going to stay in the clan forever, I think, like Maka and Karen and Nimain should be staying for good. I think some cards are kind of questionable, like Cathbad and you know, stuff like Nightmare Painter and stuff like that. I think Blaster Dark himself is also questionable, might get taken out in the future, I don't know. Phantom Blaster Dragon as well, if we get a better win con in the future, then maybe he won't be used, but we'll see how Bishore decides to develop on that in the future. And finally we get to my favorite clan, which is Pale Moon. It's back to the cool combo heavy battle phase style playstyle that I've loved it for at the start of Vanguard, loved it for throughout the entirety of the Limit Break era, and then kinda stopped loving it in the G era, where it wasn't really so much of the whole battle phase shenanigans and these convoluted combos, and just became more of just a simple call a bunch of stuff in main phase and then maybe pop up some stuff in during battle phase and then pop a couple things out, whereas now it's like card by card interactions, you have combo starters and combo extenders and everything. It's just back to the style that I love it for, and I'm really happy to be playing it right now. So 2 markers this time once again. So we have the Golden Beast Tamer one that comes as a box topper, and then the Asaka one, which is arguably the best signed marker, at least from the female side of things, which is just one of your signed markers that you can get. So let's get right into the cards themselves. First and foremost, we have the main girl of the clan, which is Golden Beast Tamer. Her first skill is pretty simple, Vanguard Circle Continuous. If you have 5 or more units during your turn, all your front row gets plus 3k power. So this includes her because it says units, but it's a really nice skill because it lets you hit magic numbers a bit easier, especially against Axel and Protect. But even against Force, you can pump up your grade 3s from hitting 12 or 22 if they're an Axel Circle to 25, and that's enough to hit the Force clans as well. But then her second skill rather, is the one that either starts combos or extends them. When she attacks, Counterblast 1 and put a card from your hand into your soul, and call up to 2 cards from your soul to rearguard circle. So the fact that you have to put a card from your hand into soul does mean that this is a really aggressive deck that, you know, you don't really call so much from your hand, but more everything from your soul, but you do lose out on hand cards over time, and it's just, you know, you don't really survive past your 5th turn, really. So it's like the 2nd turn you spend on grade 3. Usually that's where you have to finish the game or you're probably dead. So it's a pretty hard deck to play, but, you know, if you can do it right, it's really scary and it can pop off really well, but it does feel quite gambly at times, I must say. Like, I won locals with the deck the weekend before I'm recording this, but it felt like every other game was just a gamble from turn 0, basically, because of how, like, there's so many variables that you have to take care of. So Going to our main combo starter is Nightmare Doll Alice. She's also the Origin rare. She has a skill when you do misride into her, you can call up to one Workoroid from your soul to rearguard circle, and that unit gets plus 5 cancel on a turn. I'll go over the Workoroids as we keep going, but Alice is a Workoroid herself, so you can call her if you have another one in the soul at that timing. And then on rearguard circle, at the end of the battle that she attacked, this is the combo starter. You make Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1 and put it into your soul, and call a non-grade 3 card from your soul to rearguard circles. So you're usually going to be calling Jumping Jill, or something like that, or your other grade 2s that can extend your combos, but this is a really good skill because it's just, you get a 22 attack, usually you'll have her on Axle Circle, so 22 or 25, pops into Soul, calls out a grade 2, and then usually that grade 2 is going to continue the combo, and it's just a great card. Miswriting her is a bit unfortunate, but at least she gives you a +1 for miswriting into her, so it's actually not that bad. She kind of, generates the same amount of advantage as Golden Beast Tamer, but just not as efficiently because it's not in the battle phase, but, it's still alright. Then we have Purple Trapezes making a glorious return. Her skill is when you put her from rearguard circle into soul, you can soul blast a Purple Trapezist and call any card from your soul to rearguard circle. This skill is really powerful. You can soul blast the card that you soul charge, so if you soul charge her herself, you can soul blast her immediately without having another one in the soul, which is really nice. So it's really, really good because you can call out another Alice from this, you can call out your other cards, and it's just very nice overall. Pretty simple card, but can start a lot of combos herself as well, or usually she extends them. She doesn't really start them as much as something like Alice or Golden Beast Tamer. Then we have Artilleryman, also has the Axle Circle, and he is a grade 3. So continuous Vanguard rearguard circle during your turn, he gets plus 3k for each card in your soul, which can actually build up quite a lot in the late game, but if you're not careful and you play a bit, a bit too explosive, you might actually run out of soul in some games, so you really need to be careful. Then he has an act once per turn, Vanguard and rearguard circles. You may put 2 cards from your hand into your soul and draw a card. So you are minusing 1 technically, but if those are really important cards that need to go in your soul to start your combos, then it's actually not too bad. But it would be a bit too good if it was like put 2 cards from hand into soul and draw 2. That would be perfect. That would be amazing. And then his final skill is when his attack hits anything, you may Counterblast 1, but if you don't, you put all of the cards in your soul into the drop zone, which is pretty harsh, but it's actually kind of an interesting interaction because if it does hit, then you have to soul Counterblast 1. But if you, let's say, stack a crit on it, and then your opponent's like, well, if I guard this, then that guy just stays on the board, but if I don't, then my opponent has to pay a Counterblast, which he usually won't have. So it's kind of an interesting scenario in that way. You can really kind of mind game your opponent with this card, and I like it for that reason, but it's a bit too risky for my liking with how risky the deck already feels, so I chose not to play him for now at least. Then we have Jumping Jill, the one that kind of extends your combos essentially. So when you call her from the soul, you can put one of your other rearguards into your soul to call a non-grade 2 card from your soul to rearguard circle in your back row. That part is really important. I've already repeated that several times in past videos, but you do have to call a non-grade 2 to the back row, so you're usually going to call grade 1. But then if you put Purple Trapezist with her skill into the soul, then you can use the Purple Trapezist to call something else out, which is usually going to be the Alice. I'm trying to not speak too fast, but I keep doing it, and then I kind of just like start tumbling over my own words. But Jumping Jill is really good. There's a lot of cool interactions you can do with her, but it's just, her skill is quite simple to understand. Then we have the Draw Perfect Guard and Hades Hypnotist. And then we have Nitro Juggler. When you ride him or call him, look at the top 2, put 1 into your soul and 1 on the bottom of your deck. Pretty simple skill. It's kind of like Silverthorns back in the day, so it's still a really, really good card, and it's just, it helps you accelerate the soul. You can use it. The only problem is that it's when placed from hand, so if you call it from soul, you won't get to use the skill. It's a bit of a shame. If it was, then it'd be really, really good. But right now, it's just when you call him or ride him, so usually something you would do in the early game. Next up is Magical Box Streamer. Vanguard Circle. When your opponent's unit's attack hits this unit, you may Counterblast 2 and discard a card from your hand, and call up to 5 cards from your soul to rearguard circle. So it's okay because it's a really steep cost that takes away from your combos later on, and you lose a card from your hand, which is very scarce, but you get 5 units on the board immediately. But you usually won't have that much soul on your grade 2 unless like you force yourself to call like a bunch of other cards that soul charge that will go through. But I think this card, like, it's okay, but you need to really build around it, I think, and that makes it a bit too restricted in my opinion to really pull off the combo playstyle that this deck wants to do. Then we have Starting Presenter, your main grade 1 ride. When ridden or called from hand, soul charge 1. So again, it has to be called from hand if you do want to call it to get that soul charge. but then when you ride on top of it, you may put a card from your hand into your soul and soul charge 1, and you can call the soul charge card to rearguard circles. So again, it's another card like Golden Beast Tamer where you have to put a card from your hand into your soul, so you're losing out on something, but then when you soul charge, you can actually call that card, so you're kind of converting a card in your hand into a card on the board. So, and you also get to put combo pieces into the soul. Usually I'll put like a Jill in there, a purple trapezist, whatever I feel like is good, but this card is definitely really nice and worth, you know, to run at 4, so you always try to first ride into it. Then we have Midnight Bunny. On rearguard circle, when she boosts, you can soul charge 1, so that's very nice. And then her second skill is what gives a lot of pressure, which is when the attack that she boosted hits, you may counterblast 1 and put her into your soul to call a non-grade 1 card from your soul to rearguard circle. So anywhere on the board, it can be a Jill, it can be an Alice, it can be a lot of things, as long as they're not grade 1. So really good card. Just starts combos, but it's not so much that she starts combos, but she usually extends them if your opponent succumbs to the pressure, or if you call her early and like you're playing as OTT who's used like a Circle Magus, they usually don't have any counterblast left, so they usually let her through, and then you can actually combo through that. So she is a really good card and definitely worth to run as a 4 of. Then we have our grade 1 PG, an Entire Monkey, so nothing too special there. Next up is, in my opinion, a very underrated card in Comicality, Chimera. So this doesn't have a gift, but it has a rearguard skill. When it attacks, you can soul blast 1 and put one other rearguard into your soul to get plus 5k until end of battle, and if you didn't countercharge this turn, to countercharge 1. So the countercharge itself is nice, but to me, what usually matters the most, well, no, the countercharge does matter the most, but what matters just as much is the fact that you free up a spot, and you also you soul charge something from your board, meaning that you can put in a purple trapezist and then with her own skill call out something else. So this usually gets you some last chance combos out, and it's just really nice for that reason. The countercharge obviously helps a lot because that's one more Alice you can do, that's like one more, I don't know, Midnight Bunny you can afford to activate and stuff like that. So it's really nice for that reason, and I like to play him a lot. Well, not a lot in terms of amounts of cards, but a lot as in like I'm glad I have him in my deck. And another card that has a similar purpose with the whole putting cards into soul from your board thing is Amaranth Beast Tamer. When she attacks a Vanguard from Vanguard or rearguard circle, you can put one other rearguard into your soul and she gets plus 3k until the end of battle. Watch out when you attack with her when you have Golden Beast Tamer out. If you had 5 units on the board before that and then you put one in, obviously you're going to reset Golden Beast Tamer's plus 3k buff, so you're not going to get it anymore, but you get her plus 3k buff instead. But, you know, I think the most worth part of this card, the thing that's most worth about this card, I think is what I'm trying to say, is that you get the board, that's like one slot on the board opened up, and usually put something in like a Jill or an Alice that, like, or like usually like a Jill that needs to actually go into the soul, or a purple trapezist that can extend your combos. So it's pretty good for that. And then we have Dancing Knife Dancer. At the end of your turn on rearguard circle, if you have no face-up cards in your damage zone, you can put them into your soul to countercharge 1. So that's what I mean. It's like this card is also nice for the countercharge, but I think the Chimera is better just because it opens up a slot on your board to do the combos and stuff like that. And then our last card that some people like to play is Fluster Cadet. You can rest her to soul charge 1. So I think if you're playing like the box streamer variant, then you want to play her because that's early soul charge you can get. But outside of that, I don't think she's all that amazing, but some people play her as like a 2 of, even in like the more mainstream build as well without box streamers. So that is going to be it for the Pale Moon section. I'm still going to do that combo tutorial, I promise, which will probably be the next video that I upload, but I was really excited by the Pale Moon support and I'm not disappointed. It feels really risky, which I'm not used to, I guess, but I guess I'm just so used to playing Dimension Police, which feels a lot more safe, which is, you know, kind of a strange thing to say, actually, because usually it feels more risky than that, but, you know, Pale Moon is just looking really good. It's getting another wave of support in March, so after half a year we have confirmed support as well, so that's going to be pretty fun to see as well. So that's going to be it for me today. I hope you guys enjoyed this set breakdown, whichever segment you may have watched. Also, thank you for still watching these videos, because your support actually matters a lot in terms of some of these series continuing, so I'm glad that you still keep on watching them, and I hope you found out 1 or 2 new things on top of that. So that's going to be it for this video. Don't forget to check out the second channel, as well as click the bell button to check out the social medias, and also join the Discord channel if you haven't already. But on that note, that's going to be it for me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.